Hi and welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the space station restoration. In part 1 I basically stripped all the top side of the playfield down, so I've got all those parts ready to go, ready for cleaning. We'll have a look at those in a minute. And in the second part I'm going to start stripping the bottom side of the playfield. So you can see what we've got to work with. There's not too much on this game, to be fair. I think once the light boards come off, there's actually not a huge amount there. But we'll start by taking off the light boards, so all of these things here, and then all of the major mechanisms, so things like slingshots, the flipper mechs there, there's a drop target mechanism just there, that's the one in front of the ramp. Then if we go further down, we've got the pop bumpers and the drop target bank, and then right at the bottom there's the motor that makes the space station spin round. So we'll get all that, the major stuff off first. I'll probably need to remove some switches as well, just to enable cleaning on the top side to be a bit easier. And then we'll see where we are. Whether I'm going to strip the wiring looms off and clean all that and completely strip this playfield, I haven't decided yet. But first job's to get the major stuff off, and then what I'll probably do is take the playfield out of the game. It's just a bit easier to work on when it's sort of out of the game, laying down flat rather than in this vertical position. But for now, we'll start taking bits and pieces off, and we'll see what we work with. I'm expecting to find the odd broken bit here and there with some of the mechanisms. Obviously we'll need to replace stuff. Everything will be getting new coil sleeves and all new bits and pieces, new flipper rebuilds, etc. But we'll start taking things off and we'll see what we're looking like. So I've taken the playfield out of the game. It was just easier to work on with it laid down flat on the floor like this. And so far bits and pieces are coming off. One thing I did notice that I thought was pretty cool, on the target banks, so this is an example of one of the target banks. Normally, well, games I've worked on before, they're just wired into the harness, directly into the harness, and you can't really remove them as a unit. Whereas on Space Station, all of the switch banks are on connectors, so you can just pull the entire unit off and work on it separately, which I thought was pretty cool. It also creates a nice bit of space on the playfield. So far, all the circuit boards are off, relay boards have been taken off. And I'm gradually working my way through the various mechs and switch banks and stuff, getting those stripped off so they can be cleaned up. But still loads more work to do. As you can see, there's quite a lot to do here. I will probably leave all the lights, all the wiring for the lights in place. I don't think there's any need to strip all of that off, and to be honest, a lot of it's stapled to the playfield. I don't fancy messing around with that at this stage. Everything off the top side of the playfield has been cleaned up, so all the plastics, all the metal parts. The last thing that's running right now, maybe you can hear it in the background, is the tumbling all the small pieces, but pretty much everything is done and ready to go back on, so that's what we've bagged up to keep it nice and clean. And I'll continue taking bits off this playfield. So after quite a lot of faffing around, I've managed to get the wiring looms and all the mechanisms off of the playfield. As you can see here, this is what the playfield looks like at the moment. The lamp harness is still in place. As I mentioned before, I'll show you an example. There's a lot of stuff actually stapled in to the playfield or on the ground braid. I really don't fancy taking all that off, so I think I'm going to leave this as is. I can work around it. It's a lot clearer now, so I can get to inserts and kind of work around that. So that's pretty cool. And then over here, what I've done is just transferred the coil and flasher harness and the switch harness onto this board. Kept them in sort of roughly the same shape and position as they go back on the playfield. Just make it easier when I come to put them back on. Also I can work on them, just clean them up, repair any broken wires, etc. Just a bit easier when they're in this sort of state. So they look pretty good. One thing I do know I'm going to have to replace is probably this flipper coil here. I can't get the coil sleeve out of it, so at some point this has got too hot. And the coil sleeve's wedged in there now, so rather than, I have in the past messed around and like broken them out and hacked them out, but I'll just buy a new flipper coil, it's going to be easier. Most of the switches look good. I don't think there's anything too bad on either of these harnesses actually, it just needs a bit of a clean. One thing I do need to figure out, as you can see I've stripped most of the mechs down, but I can't get these two apart. They've got little like pins to hold the poppers onto the shafts, so I need to, if I'm going to strip them down, I need to figure out a way of get them onto a vise or something just to pop those pins out. They're in there pretty tight. The other option is just to clean them as they are. It won't be as great, but clean them in situ as they are, so I'll have a play with that later. On the actual playfield itself, little bit dirty on the back, but not too bad. I can now get to all of the inserts. The next step is to remove all of the P-clips so they can be cleaned up. I will undo any lamp sockets that are actually screwed to the playfield, because again it'll just make access to inserts and stuff easier, but anything that's stapled is getting left well alone. And then if I show you over here, what this has resulted in is a load of parts. So in here we've got switch banks, some of the coils I had to cut off, the motor, all sorts of bits and pieces in there that needs going through, cleaning up. There'll be a load of stuff that needs replacing, like coil sleeves and pop bumper yokes and things like that. In this top here we've got all the sort of big metal bits, so all of the bits off the mechs, they'll all get cleaned up going through. And then this tub, I'll show you how deep it's filled up, is all of the small bits, screws, nuts, bolts, all little small metal parts. All of that needs to go in the tumbler. Now I'll probably break that out into 2 separate lots, all the small metal pieces done once, and then all the screws and little bits separately. It just makes it move around easy in the tumbler and makes it get a bit cleaner, a bit quicker. But other than that, the bottom side of the playfield is pretty much stripped. So I shall tackle the P-clips, unbolt the lamps, and then we'll see where we are at that point. So everything off the top and bottom of the playfield is pretty much clean now. Everything's been tumbled and bagged up, ready to go back on. I've put a big parts order in as well, so for new bits, star posts, rubbers, loads of bits and pieces, that flipper coil. So waiting for that to arrive as well, should hopefully here on Monday. So the next job, I'm saving doing the restoring the playfield, getting all the inserts sorted out, so kind of to the last job before reassembly. So the next job is to service all of the circuit boards and fix any electronic bits and pieces that I can work on sort of at my desk here rather than on the game itself. So you can see laid out here, these are the pop bumper caps with the modded LED rings. In taking these out, 2 of the wires have snapped off, so I just need to resolder those. For each of the lamp boards, I'm just going to check and probably reflow solder on the header pins, and also use the, where is it, just there, the fiberglass pencil just to burnish up the connectors, just make sure they're all okay. And similar with these other boards, so we've got some relays for the GI and some opto boards here for the space station, drop target bank. Again, just mainly just look at the connectors, burnish them up and reflow where necessary, just to make sure we've got no dry solder joints. And then a few other little bits and pieces. This is the motor for the actual space station. I think I mentioned previously the wire had snapped because someone had put this chocolate block in. I'm going to replace this chocolate block and just wire directly and then put some heat shrink tube around it. This switch, I snapped the wire off when I was removing it from the game, so again just resolder that. And these are the coils I had to take off the top side of the playfield to get the harness off. So I'm just going to clean up the tabs, get all the old solder out and the old bits of wire and stuff, clean those up, and so they're ready for when I have to resolder them back into the game. It's just a load easier. So one of my favourite bits, I guess, of working on games, I'm going to sit and do some soldering and make sure all the electronic components are to the best they can be. All the electronics work's now been completed, so it's time to move on to the last job, which is having a look at this playfield and trying to sort out, well, give it a good cleaning up as well as sorting out these inserts. But I think I'll save that for the next video. So this one is basically we've stripped the bottom of the playfield. Everything's been cleaned up and ready, and it's all ready to go back on. Once I've fixed the playfield, then we can start putting this game back together, and hopefully it'll start looking decent again. So I think that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. The next video we'll have a look at sorting these inserts out, and I'll see you then. Thanks a lot. Bye.